The hardest part is being consistent and just doing it. If you have a message that's going to make the world a better place, you owe it to the people to do that.
Roy, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining the podcast. You've been doing podcasting for a few years now. You can tell us how many years, and you've got 6 podcasts. And I just find that really fascinating. We met in 2022 and you gave a speech, you gave a talk around helping people with podcasting, and you had not met anyone that had gone down the route in the same way that you had before. And I'm just really excited to learn from you some of your experiences, how you've grown, and why, and what's going on with you that drives you with a podcast. So what's exciting you in life right now anyway, Roy?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invite. Looking forward to the conversation. And I remember actually being on the stage that time, and you were brilliant. You actually made it very nice, the introduction and everything, and just we had it well prepared in case there was some issues. But you had said to me, hey, if we have time, people might ask questions, and I said no problem. And as it turned out, I was bombarded with questions during the speech, but it was good. It was a good experience, and I got good feedback from it. So yeah, first of all, thanks very much for the way that you done it. Made it very easy, made me relaxed, for the speech.
Yeah, it was. That was so fun because in that year I was mostly introducing different speakers throughout that period, and I'll try and keep the story short, but it is quite funny because before I went to do the emceeing as they call it, the guy that was running the program, he put out an application for people to do some of this emceeing, and I remember actually deliberately messaging him and saying, you know what, I actually don't want to do this at all, but I want to make sure that I'm here to support you, whatever happens. So if you need any backup at any point, you can reach out to me. But I made it very clear. It's like, but I don't want to do this. And it's just so funny how the universe works, because I ended up being the person that was on stage the most in that entire 3-week event, probably like 40 times. And the first week was so challenging. I was really coming up against so many difficulties and limitations and things like that. And after the first week, I ended up feeling really excited in the growth journey, and which reminds me of the podcasting, because for me, it was about jumping straight into the deep end and figuring it out as you go, which is usually where I thrive most, because I don't do very well at planning too far ahead, which is why I like to just jump in straight here and just make things organic. And then the introduction for you was just as organic as I could make it. I wanted to connect with you as a person, heart to heart, and just meet you as an individual in the present moment, rather than reading your bio, so to speak, and reading that off verbatim. And so, yeah, I think that for me, it created a nice vibe between us, and your talk was excellent, and the Q&As were perfect. People were just jumping at it just to ask you all these different questions. So
yeah, I mean, I'm it's 7 years now that I've been doing it, and yeah, I love it. I mean, it's not just like the podcasting, but what happens is you're interviewing people, and I'm changing my life based on the conversations that I'm having. I know I'm helping people, but I'm also benefiting. And for example, sometimes you don't take it for granted what they're saying, because you have to do your own research, but it just makes you go, that's interesting. That's not my thought belief from before. And then I go and get books and delve deeper. And then I kind of go, okay, no, I've moved a different level because of this. So that is one big advantage of, being a podcaster.
Yeah, I feel that. There's something inside that just knows that innately. And that was one of the reasons that I sort of pulled the trigger and just decided to jump in, because like I said just before in that story, I grow so much when I'm kind of just swimming in it and figuring it out as I go, rather than planning all the steps going forward. So do you mean that it's the research before you have a conversation with the guest, or is it after you've had the conversation, they're giving you all these ahas and now you're really interested and you realize, oh, maybe there's some improvements I could make in my life?
It's a bit of both, because like I do a lot of research. I mean, I have a form that I get people to check out, but I go away, I'll check their YouTube, I'll check everything. Then I'll find out what was a popular YouTube. If they'd done a TEDx, I'm listening to the TEDx. I'm doing a lot of checking, but so I'm curious coming up to it. And then I'm making sure that the questions are kind of relevant, because what happens with a lot of podcasters, what they can do, that's why I like your style as well. It's like, it's go with the flow and everything. But a lot of people, if they're doing the tour, they make the mistake of giving everybody the exact same thing, and they go through a process. And that's no, say if you're promoting a book or whatever, that's no good when you think of it, because if you're creating shorts and stuff like that, everything's the exact same. It's just a different person asking the exact same question. So I like to delve in deeper. I like to find out about the person, and they tend to love that. And then they're sharing it. They're giving a fantastic review because you're kind of thinking outside of the box instead of asking I mean, I'll give you an example. I had one guy, and he sent me exactly how the interview was going to go. You're going to ask me this. And he gave me the answers and everything. And then he didn't want to do a video. And I said, we're doing video. I'm not going to ask it like this. And I made him relax because he was actually nervous, but I got him to relax. And it done very well. And he was delighted with it. So sometimes people have a fear of being on the camera and everything, and you just get them comfortable, because like you did, you were getting people very comfortable on the stage. There was other people that were doing kind of something similar to you, and they were just reading it, and it was like, there was no heart in it. And when you do that, not only are you connecting with the speaker, but you're making the audience kind of feel relaxed as well, and as if like, hey, we're friends here, and it just sets up everything so it's the same with the podcasting. You can do it that way as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the reasons that got me really lit up around doing podcasts, because I remember having conversations with a friend of some years ago, and you've most likely done the same on your podcasts, or just hanging out with some friends where you just get into these deep conversations, and all of a sudden you're getting these ahas, things you've never thought about before. They're getting ahas, things they've never thought about before. And there's something magic that happens when two people get together, and you pull out all this new wisdom and information. And I was trying to reverse engineer that, and I realized, the main ingredient in that is just the pure presence. We're also not focusing on the past. We're just here with each other right now, and all this stuff comes through. And I think that's right. You need to be able to, it's great to have some questions, but it's also great to just go with the flow when something natural comes up. Because I also want to know you, Roy, at your essence. I want to know what sort of is on your heart, or what you're curious about as well. And I think that's what creates the magic. Were you always comfortable on stage, speaking in front of cameras?
No, and I think this is an important one for those perhaps thinking of starting. So I'm 52 now. I was 45 when I started, when I made a decision. And what happened? It was actually an A-Fest I went to. And at this stage, I had lost everything. I had been wiped out with the real estate market, and I saw so much corruption. And it was, what's your quest? I think it was in Mexico was the actual event. And at that, I said, okay, my quest is to expose the fraud and corruption. But also there was Vision, and there was also Eric Edmades, who I was like, these guys are brilliant speakers. I said, I need to become a good speaker to get my message out. So when I came back, I said, okay, I need to join Toastmasters. And I'd probably go back a little later to tell you how shy I was. When I was younger, I wouldn't go to the shop buying sweets, I'd give my friend. When I was 18, going to the bar, wouldn't go up for a round, give my friend the money when it was my turn to buy a round. So I was shy, very shy. Even like when I was working for a mechanical contractor, like I was running big jobs, but the one part I hated was the meetings. And you could have the architect, the client, 20 people at a meeting, and my voice would just go. It was the one part of the week I just hated. So when I decided I'm going to do Toastmasters, of course I had to have friends to come with me to hold my hands, because, being the shy type. And I said, this is definitely for me. And they wouldn't join it. And I was too shy to join it myself. And the only reason I joined the Toastmasters Club, a new one opened, and I said, okay, everyone's going to be new. Went there. They said, are you signing up? Yeah, I'm signing up. Will you do a speech next week? Yeah. And it was basically from that moment on, do a speech, enter a competition. I joined the other one as well. I formed my own Toastmaster club. I became a coach of a club. I became a DTM within 3 years, which is Distinguished Toastmaster. I did open comedy. I did open mic, open TEDx. I got into the final of 5 countries with Toastmasters. I just went all in. So I overcame. So I mean, when I was on stage with you, you saw a person that was kind of comfortable on stage, as opposed to a person that was terrified, because you wouldn't have known the previous Roy.
Wow. When you went to Toastmasters and you first signed up and they said you're going to do a speech next week, how were you feeling? Because I imagine there was resistance, there was willing and resistance happening at the same time. How were you feeling during that week before you did that?
Well, first of all, I thought it was normal that you could actually do a speech. It was they caught me off guard because it was the very first meeting. And what happened is there's new people in a club, but also it's when you form a club, it's usually there's about 10 people from existing clubs. So they had experience, but I didn't know that at the time. I prepared. I had somebody that became my mentor who actually helped me. And I remember even being in the car trying to repeat the speech and just somebody looking at me, and there's me talking away to myself, and they were probably looking at me thinking I'm crazy. But I did prepare. And during the speech, I remember I paused halfway through it because I had prepared and I had spoke at home, but there wasn't 20 eyeballs looking at me or 40 eyeballs as such, And I paused. It seemed like 5 minutes, but it wasn't that long when I actually went back because I recorded every speech I did. And what happened is at the time people were giving like a review of the things that were good and bad, and all the existing Toastmasters gave all fantastic things. Great speech, you overcame the pause and all this kind, and all the new people just abused me, like where was the entertainment, couldn't hear you, what was in your pocket, and all this kind of thing. And what I actually did is I kept them pieces of paper and I did a comedy speech kind of mocking everything. And that's the one that got me into the final of the 5 countries. So I used that moment to make a joke of, the way that people did it, that they should have stepped in because most people would never come back. But because I was so determined at that stage, I kind of laughed at it. It didn't hurt me. I'm not the type that, things like that affect me. But for public speaking and stuff like that, it could have, but it didn't. But my message of the speech was like, be careful how you're kind of giving feedback because you could actually hurt a person's feelings.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, because there's different types of feedback, and I love it. Sometimes in the moment, it's not what you want to hear, when someone gives you some real direct information to you. But there's so many times in my life when I reflect on maybe months later or a couple of years later and go back to that moment and think, wow, if it wasn't for that person being super direct and just really just being super honest with me about maybe the way I'm communicating or the way I'm showing up or something like that, it actually changed my life. But then you've got the other side when someone's just kind of out there to just put you down. And I think there's a difference between that. But I love how you approached that and just turned it into a comedy piece. And what a great way to learn as well, because comedy is not something that's, I would say most people would be even more afraid of. Getting on stage is one thing. Doing comedy on stage is a whole nother ball game, So much respect.
Because in Toastmasters, you're going to get a clap no matter how bad you are. I went to the comedy place, and unless you're funny, they'll boo you or whatever. And so that's why I did it. I actually did it intentional to get complete feedback and just learn from it. And it was a brilliant experience. I was terrified before I went up on stage, but I just, like I said, I'm going to overcome my fear. And it was like, just dive in. Any opportunity to do speaking, I was taking it.
Right. And did you always have that from a young age? Was that sort of one of these classic programmed things as you were a kid in school, when we're often, we get into our imaginations and then the teacher just snaps and goes, come on, pay attention. And you get snapped out of your imagination and you start to lose this confidence to just speak and let things flow. Because you got a few years on top of me, but I know that made a difference to me as well. Did that start young?
I believe, and from talking to a lot of people on the speaking podcast, that a lot of people, their fear of public speaking came from school. Because what happens is, at one stage, you're learning the language and they make you read a book and stand up. You're learning new words and you're stumbling, you're stuttering, and you just get laughed at. And yeah, so there, and it depends on the teacher. So, for example, with history, and I think this might have been one of the reasons I came last in the class in history, and it wasn't that I wasn't studying; it just was I didn't like the guy. The guy was aggressive, so there was always the fear of the guy anyway because he was just shouting at people. And I came last in the class, and I think I got 18%. And he says, "My grandmother would do better, and she's been dead 10 years." Like, and I can laugh at that, no, but you get abused from the kids because of something like that. And they changed teacher then, like 2 years, 3 years later, and I was getting 100% because the teacher was so nice and just had a different process of teaching. And in the state exam, I got an A. And it's like, how can you go from being the worst to the best? And a lot is down to the teacher and the teacher, how they make you feel when you're standing, and they're, instead of encouraging you, they're making you feel like crap. And lots of people that I spoke to, that's where it stemmed from. But regarding kind of pushing through or being afraid of somebody kind of bullying you or something, like that wasn't there. There was always the fight in me.
Right. Yeah. So something that comes up all the times I've met you and seen how you show up in the world, you seem to have built up a strong resilience and the ability to just go through adversity no matter what. And it's a trait that I highly admire. And it takes some courage to feel those feelings sometimes, and then just go, no, I'm choosing differently and stepping into these things as you did with Toastmasters, the comedy, and shifting those marks in school as well. Where did that come from? Is that something from your family, or did you just build that yourself through feedback and just giving it a try?
I don't know. I was always like, I'm always entrepreneurial. I mean, at 9, I was washing cars. At 11, I was doing newspapers. I did that up to college. And then with the money from the newspapers at 14, I bought a lawnmower. I used to go around the neighborhood cutting grass, and sometimes I'd have more money than my dad. Like, my dad worked as a chief projectionist in the cinema, but he was also a photographer, and he used to do weddings. So he'd do the pictures, and my mom would be putting the albums together. So there was a bit of kind of entrepreneur stuff. And like, if I look at my parents, like, I had a fantastic upbringing, but like, there was a lot of bullying going on in the area I was in. I was in like council housing, and there was a lot of, and my mom would like, wouldn't be afraid. She'd go down if there was, like, one time there was like 7 guys, all older than me, took the papers and burnt them, and she went down. They never touched me again. My brother had been bullied with his friend, and there was about 14 of them, I'd say, in the field across from my grandmother's house. And she went over, and they shit themselves. Like, she basically went like, and it was like, I could see that there was like, nobody should be that brave approaching these. But so I definitely think from my mother, I got, and they were always kind of do the right thing no matter what. So it's like honor, and yeah, I think, yeah, it's from your upbringing. For me, I definitely saw the way it was.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for someone starting a podcast? Say they've never done that before. We've got the classic, not comfortable in front of a camera, perhaps not even really sure what my message is or anything like that, but maybe they have a deep fire within them that just something's just driving them to do something. What would you say to someone like that?
If you have a message that's going to make the world a better place, you owe it to the people to do that. And you might say, like, I'm not a technical person, so you do not need to be extremely technical to do this. You can just learn it. There's simple, there's processes, and you learn along the way. You learn about sound, you learn about lighting, you learn. I mean, if I go back and listen to my earlier episodes, I cringe, but it's okay. I still got them out. People were following it. People were liking it, and that's all what it's about. You can just keep developing, and as I mentioned earlier, you get to meet people. So there's a few different things. If it's a business, you can actually have potential clients that you can be interviewing, and without even having to pitch them, they could become your clients because they see what you're doing. And a lot of people have a skill set, and why not share that with the world? It's all you do. I mean, you don't need to get extremely expensive equipment. You can buy a mic from $50. Some people even do it on their iPhone, but you can buy a mic. I mean, most people know for the last 4 or 5 years they're well used to Zoom and things like that. And like, if you have a fear, remember, it's most people that are shy, they have no problem talking to one person. It's usually when they're in a room and 10 people are. So you're not talking to. There could be 10 people listening. There could be 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, but you don't see them, so you don't need to be fearing that. You just talk to the person. This is just if you're having a normal conversation, and if you've got value to bring, there's a fly on the wall, which is the audience. They're listening and they're benefiting from it, and you just get the feedback and you start. So it's just do it. Don't be afraid. It's not hard. I guarantee you, it's not hard.
What's the hardest part?
The hardest part is being consistent and just doing it. Because if you're like procrastinating and going, I want this, and then I'm going to launch, or I want everything perfect, and I want all these different people, then you could probably be a year down the line before you actually do it. It's like when you decide, just do it. You can obviously have a few in the background and everything and try to be consistent, because, that's one thing. Sometimes people, they come in, they do 3 episodes, they're gone. That's the end of it, or 10. And so I would say make a commitment to do it for at least a year and try to be consistent. And I'm consistent at times with some of them, but because of all the different things I do in a few different businesses, they don't go up. But the clients that I'm talking that they do, it makes a big difference. So the ones I listen to, say Blind Boy, Wednesday, I know that episode is coming out, and I look forward to that. I know, like, say, Joe Rogan or Patrick Bet-David, they're a bit haphazard, but you're guaranteed a few a week, and there's always something in the pipeline. But if somebody's putting out 1 episode, don't put out 3 and then nothing for a month. Try to do it every Monday, every Wednesday, whenever you decide you're going to do it, and be consistent. And if you're consistent, your listeners know when it's coming out. And shame on me for not being consistent with all of them, but I tell everybody, be consistent. And they're doing it, and I love seeing that. I love seeing the people that I'm kind of working with. And they're still 200 episodes later, and like Elena, she actually was in, and she's the girl that does the TEDx and everything. I helped her go, and she's over 200 episodes now, and she's consistent, and it's great to see. So that's what I would say to yourself and to anybody that's starting. Make sure you're consistent.
Yeah, thank you for that, because consistency is, I think, my number one rule for myself. I realized the power of consistency, because with consistency, if you show up each week, you're not really focusing as much on the outcome necessarily, but you are just making sure you show up, because then people build up that trust that, Steve's going to be here on Monday, or Roy's going to be here on Wednesday. And if you miss that, if you do that a couple of times, like, oh, well, maybe I won't show up next time. Maybe I won't check it out because they weren't here for the last 2, like a bus, you probably go and buy different. I'm living in Costa Rica at the moment, and buses are a bit of a challenge. So you never know if they've been too early or too late. So it's kind of that. Yeah, consistency is very, very key. And for me, one of the blocks, I'm not sure if it's a block. Now that I've started the process, it does actually feel like the right time. There's sometimes finding that wisdom. Sometimes we can feel like we're procrastinating, but if we do finally take action, in this case, I realized actually this was the right time. It may have seemed like procrastination before, but it's because there were certain aspects of me and my life and my journey that I kind of had to piece together. I don't know if that's an excuse, but it does definitely feel like the right time for me. Figuring out really why I want to do the podcast, because it's been on my mind for about 3 years. But I think I really needed to understand what it was, and not compare myself to other podcasts and think I have to do the same as them. It's really about, who am I? and my perspective and the way I ask questions and my perspective and my curiosity is what creates the conversations that we're going to have on these podcasts. I'm not going to be the same as someone else. And I think as soon as I realized that was the moment I relaxed and just went, let's just go, let's do it.
And that's why people will be drawn to you, because what will happen is they listen and they go, I like his style. I like the way he's doing it. Whereas, sometimes, let's say Tim Ferriss about it, like they have like a set of questions, 10 questions. I don't know, does he still do that? But it's like I hear people and they listen to that all the time. And that's like, I couldn't. Or a few other shows that I listen to that are really popular, and it's like that doesn't resonate with me. It's like it doesn't work, and you'll find that the people, they call them the true fans, that will like what you're doing. So in kind of relation to what I said, and it's very important for you and for others, with the speaking podcast, what I was doing is I put out one a week, and then I said, what if I do two? I might double my audience, and it actually tripled, and it was great. And I'm not sure when I did it, but at one stage I decided I'll take the Christmas kind of period off without telling anyone, and then it took me a while to kind of get going again. They weren't waiting around for me, so don't ever do that. If you do take a summer off or Christmas, just let your listeners know, because you owe it to them. And I didn't do that. So make sure you're telling them, hey, I'm taking 2 weeks off at Christmas or whatever you're doing, but let them know. Or if you're doing the seasons, because some people, they'll do a season. Okay, season 2 is coming in such a time. They'll expect it. They're waiting for it, but they're not going, oh, why isn't this the bear? And then they delete it. And you just assume they'll be searching for you all the time. You're gone off the radar. So make sure you keep them in the loop with when you're doing your shows and taking breaks.
There's a quote that I heard on a podcast, and I believe it comes from Jim Rohn, and it's every disciplined effort should have multiple rewards. And when I heard that, it just rang true for me straight away. And I realized, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I just unconscious of that fact. And all the things when I drove through and completed projects, things that were out of my sort of, I wasn't aware that I was able to complete them. I didn't have the skill set and all of this sort of stuff. I realized that those projects, you get the benefits like podcasting of you're speaking, you're learning about consistency, you're overcoming fears, whatever. There's this list starts to build around the benefits around doing a podcast. What other benefits that we may not have considered have you gotten personally from doing podcasting?
Well, one, I asked people to send me the books. At the start, I was going away buying the books, and I was like, this isn't working out well. I'm going away buying the books. I'm helping them promote themselves. It's, because at the start, I was like, you'd be paying for Calendly, Zoom, and all these different things. And they didn't mind because I had other businesses going, but it started to kind of mount up. So then people I put it in my form, like, if you have a book, I don't like digital books. Some people do. You can give me an audio. I'm okay with that. I can be kind of in the gym or something like that, and I listen to an audio. That's good. But digital, I want to get away from the screen. Like, we're on it enough times. So getting a lot of books, because I read up to 100 books a year, and there's books I get that I would never have bought. Like, and I'm reading it because, okay, I want to have a nice conversation, and I thoroughly enjoy. I've had so many books that I like give it 10 out of 10 that I have got from a guest, and then it makes the conversation decent as well, because I'm kind of making notes as I'm reading it, and then commenting on certain things, or they might just have given one line on a certain thing, and I go, ooh, that's interesting, I want to delve a bit deeper. And they mightn't have discussed it in the book, but they've just kind of thrown a little pebble about that little topic or something like that. So that's one of the advantages. The other is, like, you can get clients from it. So whatever you're doing, like, so I never try to push what I'm doing. I kind of have in my form, hey, interested in virtual assistants? Are you interested, in the coaching? Do you want me to promote you? Because I help people get on shows as well, if they want to do a tour. And they're just, or if they want to do sponsorship. So they're just reaching out. They're ticking the box. So I'm never done a hard sell. And it's, I get clients doing it that way. So and some people, they're coaches, or they can even interview their potential clients that they'd like to work with. So there's so many things like that. So for me, that's one of the benefits that do. And the other thing is that is, like, you have the interview when you're having the conversation, But then when you're editing it, you're listening again. And there's been times, like, I thoroughly enjoy listening to it, but there's been times that, and I've talked to someone else on this, there's times that I said, this wasn't a great one. And when I listened back, it was like, oh, this was actually very good. I don't know why that happened, but it's happened to me. And somebody else said the exact same thing. But you get to listen again and just the edit. Like, I love the marketing, all the marketing. Because the thing is, you're going to learn a few things with, say, the podcasting and the different marketing. But whatever you're learning, whether you're buying marketing books, or it applies to anything you're doing. So sometimes people think, I'm going to learn this skill set to help me with, say, the podcast. But the reality is when you learn stuff, you can apply it with the other businesses that you're doing, whether it's coaching or whatever, if you're selling a product. But you're learning something on the social media platforms that you can use as well. So that's another advantage.
Well, that's really great. I'd love to zoom in as well. When you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, say you're reading someone's book and you see a little quote. What I like about that, I'd love to zoom in on that, where you see the quote. The writer may not have elaborated on this one thing. It may have just been a kind of a passing part of another story. But because of you and your particular lens of curiosity, you then bring that to that person, and all of a sudden that can be really meaningful to them, because it may have sparked something that they're not thought of as deep as that. And I think that's the beauty of having such unique lens of different podcasters. We're not going to speak to everyone. I'm not, a lot of people aren't going to like my podcast, and that's cool, because the people that are going to resonate with me anyway.
One of the things there, because you said as you were saying that somebody mightn't like my podcast, and this is an important thing, because you'll always have haters in life, right? So you could have 100 people give beautiful comments and everything, and you get one person that just destroys you. And where most people's energy will go there, and all I say is report, delete, or just laugh at it, and concentrate on all the positive, because people have thrown in the towel when they say, I'm not doing this no more because of abuse or whatever. You might do a certain episode on a certain topic that is against most people's belief system, or they mightn't understand what's going on, and don't take it to heart. But if it's not, the way I do it is, if it's not too abusive, if it's just a comment, I leave it in. If it's really nasty, I'll report it. And if it's just a kind of bad comment that I don't want, I'll delete it. But I don't take it, I don't go to bed with it, and I don't carry it around with me for the day. And I know people are guilty of doing that, so don't. Because all you do is, even if you do check their social media, I call them Billy No Mates. Like, most of the time they don't have a picture because they're hiding. And even if they have a picture, you just know there's something wrong, or you can even see where they've commented on other things. And don't put your energy there. Just like, I don't even do that anymore. I don't even go in. It's like, they are what they are. And it's not a tiny percentage. But if it happens, don't worry about it. And another important one is, like, a load of people, they'll compare themselves to, say, like Joe Rogan, Mr. Beats, all these top people, and they'll see millions and millions of views, and they'll think they're a failure when they start. Whether they're starting off or they're just doing it for a few years, they're going, I'm only getting so many. And I bring it back down to the room, Toastmasters room or whatever, or even where we were speaking in Estonia. If there's 20 people in the room, you're happy. And if they came back next week and you get to speak again, you'd come back. But for some reason, when we see that on a platform, Spotify or whatever, and you see 20, you think, oh, I'm a failure, this is terrible. And I just say, don't worry, there'll be people come and go. And if you're consistent, it'll start growing. But remember, there are people that are actually giving their time to listen. Like, at the end of the year, you get stats. And I mean, like the Wake, I don't know which one, but there's a load of them. There was hundreds of people that I was their number one podcast. And I was like shocked. It's like, it's amazing that there's so many amazing podcasts out there. And I'm their number one. And they give you the top 5 as well. You're in the top 5 or the top 10. And there's obviously more for that. But it's such an honor to know that somebody is ranking your podcast as number one. And even if it starts off, it's only one, honor that. And no matter what the numbers are, don't beat yourself up. Because at the start, I remember I was trying to get to 100 downloads, and I was going into the Toastmasters meeting. Did you listen to it yet? And it was like, that was the big thing. Then it was 1,000. And I remember when I hit, with a few of the podcasts, when I hit 1 million, it was like, meh, it was no longer about the numbers. And even now, I track everything. I've got an Excel sheet and I'm tracking it so that I'm making sure that I'm promoting it and everything, because I see if there's something, hey, well, why is this gone down a bit? And I go, oh, I didn't put it on Facebook, or I didn't do it there. But it's not about the numbers, because I know, you can see yourself ranked and all that, and you know people are getting there, but that isn't the reason. The reason is, like, we're having a conversation, and if you touch one person's life, and only one person, would you have that conversation? Yeah. You would. So that's the way to think of it. And I think it lands on the person's lap, the conversation, because you'll have all different guests and everything. I think it lands on the person's lap when they need to hear it. And you will never know, you might never know what's happened and the ripple effect, but you are having an impact. And if you're having a positive impact in the world gets better.
Yeah, I really feel that ripple effect thing. I think we take that for granted big time. I often bring this up in conversations. Just this thought of, I'll bring it to you right now. Just as what you just shared. Have you ever thought of that right now, as we speak on this podcast, in this very moment, there could be somebody in, let's say, Botswana, and they could be having a conversation over dinner with maybe their friend or someone in their family, and they're talking about this guy that they met, or this guy even that they saw one day, the one they're on holiday, they're in Ireland, they're on holiday, and they saw this guy help a little old lady across the street, and they saw this sign of goodwill. They didn't speak to you or anything like that, but they just observed this act. And now they're back in Botswana having this conversation and talking to this person about, wow, that person changed my life. Just by seeing this act of kindness, it shifted something in me, and I've become a better person because of it. Now, you didn't have any interaction with this person, but it shifted them. Now they're having a conversation with this other person. It brings you chills just by thinking about it. And how many times are these ripples happening? And I guarantee that everyone watching this, and obviously including yourself, there's someone in the world that you'll probably never ever get to meet or never know exists, and they'll be talking about you and something that you did to impact their life.
Definitely. And I suppose this is one that will help you, and it's an important one. It's because I was, say, on YouTube, I've got the YouTube channel, I've got all the different things, and sometimes you get so many different new subscribers and everything. And one time, my youngest child, you might have met him actually at the event, Daniel. He's 11 now, but he was on the telly on YouTube. He was watching, I think, Magic, or else it was Mr. Beast, but it was Magic actually, because he was into Magic at the time, and it was like making sure he gave a thumbs up when he liked it. And next, my subscribers started going up. And I was like, I'd look at loads of videos. Like, just say you with your podcast, I could look at it and really enjoy it, sit down, and then just move on. And it's like, just make sure that you give the thumbs up when it's something that you like. Because one, it starts showing you more stuff like that. But it also helps the person that is the creator, because it starts showing it to more people. The way the algorithms work is it checks, say, the first 100 people, sees what the interaction is. And unless they actually give a thumbs up, unfortunately. So when you like something and something's important, give a thumbs up. And say for TikTok or whatever, there's other ways of doing it as well. If there's the stuff with the silly dancing and things, you press a button, I don't want to see this no more. Or you see something negative, I don't want to see this no more. And then, like, say, when I see entrepreneurial stuff, I see health stuff, I see comedy, because they're the things that I want to see that uplift me. And just to be conscious of that. So I encourage the listeners now to make sure that they give you a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, and a review. So it actually helps with getting you in the charts and everything. And we rarely do it, but I'm conscious of it. So when I see something, I'm conscious of giving the heart, and just, it's nothing. It takes a fraction of a second, but it makes an impact. So if we support the people doing good in the world, it gets them in front of more people. So it's well worth doing.
I'd actually like to dive in a little bit into, because you just brought it up. I heard somewhere only last week, actually, which is good information for me, and hopefully you can shed a bit of light onto this. Things like Spotify and iTunes, for example, they don't have the same, they're not Instagram, they're not YouTube, they don't have these thumbs up and likes and things like that, if I'm correct. So you don't have this organic, viral kind of way of growing and getting the message out or getting the podcast out on these platforms. How do you approach that in a marketing sense or getting the word out? Do you have to do that externally or word of mouth or in groups and things like that? Or, what's your experience on that?
So with, say, the Apple, I mean, there is the review side of things, so people can do that. But as far as they're watching, but the numbers will actually start showing up. So when people are listening to a lot, it will help with kind of listen notes and stuff like that, where it'll show up. Spotify, you can't give like a review. You can give a 5-star, or you can give whatever star you want, like, but you can't make a comment. But what you can do is you can create a poll, and people can have comments. So they're starting to have engagement in it. So I actually see people, like I had one, I just laughed, unsubscribing, it was like whatever topic it was. And, I didn't do it, but my kind of thing is like, it's not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. Like, but you, you, you can put a poll that will engage the audience, or you can just, like, people will write. And then, like, you can have, say, a website that's connecting all of them, because I mean, most of the RSS feed, just for those that wouldn't know, your channel is an RSS feed, which then you put out on Spotify, Apple, and it's automatic. So once you upload it to a platform that you're using, whether it's Buzzsprout or Spotify or Podbean, it's like a car. There's so many of them out there. You just have to do your research and see what kind of works with you. But usually what happens then is it just spits them out to all the different places. You have to add them manually at the start. So that, I can tell people, I give them a list if I'm working with clients, I'd have 30 or 40. And at the start, I was just telling people, look, if there's a platform that you want me to add it to, just give it to me. And there's people that would reach out. I wouldn't have even heard of it, but I'd add it. And then you start getting more listeners from that. And that kind of helps. So,
great. Well, thanks for that. I didn't know.
And like, I mean, there's the marketing side of things there's a load to it. So with, say, a website or whatever, there's some websites that you just press a button, you share it to. Like, if you're like, I encourage everyone, do the video and the audio. Some people, they don't want to show their face, and some, they do show their face, but they're not putting it up. They're just doing it for the conversation. But I'd encourage, do Rumble, BitChute, YouTube. Some people only watch on them platforms. They're not into the listening to the podcast. So it's better, and count them as numbers. So when you're doing, like, my Excel sheet, the way I do it is of all the different channels, and then I'm averaging it. So I know, okay, my speaking is this, my Polish one is the average for this. I know, and I count all of them, and even the shorts as well. Like, I'm putting up the shorts, and you'll start playing around with it, and you'll see, okay, this is working, this isn't. This is costing a lot of my time. I'm not getting no engagement. Doesn't seem to be any interaction. And if it's just a case of going into, say, YouTube, hit on Twitter, like, to be honest, which I don't get much on Twitter. But what happens, say, especially the crypto, a lot of people in the crypto world, Twitter is how they engage, and they would share it, and then they get a lot of engagement. So I just consistently do it, but sometimes you see 1 heart, 2 hearts. I've, like, I don't know, 4,500 followers. But I mean, the reality is there 100 real ones? I don't know, because sometimes, even when I'm interviewing people, I'm looking at their social media as well, because you can have people with 100,000 and no engagement, so they bought it, because people do that. You can buy anything. You could go in now and get 10 million downloads, but what happens is, when you turn off the tap, boom. What's the point? That's an ego thing. So, don't fall for that trap.
Yeah, that's great. I have zero interest in false listeners or anything. I'd rather.
But you'll be bombarded, and, like, some people, some existing podcasters or people, just be aware. There'll be people approaching you. I can get you this. No, they can't. And it's like, it'd be different if it was organic and you got a certain percentage that's staying there. That's good investment. And what you'll find is your own marketing that does it, your own copywriting. The most I've ever grown. I played around with it. I tried them. I mean, if somebody comes along and says, "Hey, I can get you 1,000 downloads," you go, all right, let's see. And then you go, all right, it didn't increase. It's just the exact same. So why am I paying money to do this? So don't fall for that.
So one thing I'm also very fascinated by is you've got 6 podcasts, I believe, and that's quite a feat. One podcast for most people is already a lot to think about. Then you've got 6, and yeah, you just mentioned a minute ago, one of them is Polish as well. I'd love you to dive a little bit deeper into that. 'Cause I'd love to see a process, but they're all on different topics. So are they speaking to different aspects of you and just feeds these different parts of you? And they're all for passion, to learn and grow. I mean, what can you tell me about
Yeah.
why have you done 6 podcasts? You crazy guy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Actually, a few people have said that. They said usually when people do a few podcasts, they're kind of the same team. If it's entrepreneurship, business, and just a little tweak to it. So the first one was the speaking. So it's helping people speak, coaches and stuff like that. But I kind of I'm interviewing people just all walks of life basically, and authors and stuff like that. So I mentioned it in the show notes or in the description that look, the first 200 is about helping you with public speaking. So if you want to go back and listen to that, next one was the meditation. So sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't have time to meditate." I've got meditations from 1 minute to 2 hours, and then I've got a lot of interviewing people on breathwork, on chakras, on yoga, on different religions. It's like, just yeah, and I'm just curious as well, just talking to the different people, and so I enjoy that. The Polish one, I think I have a different way of with languages, how, because what happens is most of the time they're pushing grammar on you, they're pushing and perfection, and then you just get tired and you just become to hate it as like a magnet. So the way I said is, like, I was the student and the teacher was, telling me how to do the different pronunciations and stuff like that. But the way I was doing it was like, go to a dentist. What you need to say in a dentist. Go to a mechanic. Go any of the everyday life that you're using. And then we put in a bit of grammar, just getting people to understand a bit. But it's got millions of downloads. And even like the co-host that I have started a franchise, so pulled away. So I actually have to, I'm currently looking to start. It hasn't gone out 6 months or something like that, but I'm looking for a co-host. But I'm not rushing into it. I want to make sure somebody gets it, has the energy levels. But what I started doing is doing shorts from the previous ones, and sometimes I'm getting like 10,000 views on the shorts a week. The downloads are still 20 to 30,000 on between the audio and the video. It's unreal. Like, people just find it's followers will keep growing. So, that's why I don't want to walk away, but I enjoy it as well. It's good for me because I'm living in Poland. I know I've got my son. So that was that one. The next one was my passion one, the awakening, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions. Because there's a lot of shows just scaring you and
Yeah.
depressing you. And I was like, what can we do? What can we do? So I've got, like, I had Mickey Willis, I've had David Icke, I've had Dr. Peter McCullough. I've had a load of famous people that on the show, and I'm always asking the questions, and I get different answers from. I don't do the norm, and I think that what makes it stick out. So I love that. The next one then was the crypto. So there was a load of fraud and corruption with crypto, NFTs and everything, and I didn't want to put that into the awakening because I said not everyone's into blockchain technology, and I didn't want to lose my existing listeners. So I created the crypto podcast, and that's done well as well. And the last one is the Podfather. So it's getting people started or existing podcasters and just giving tips. I'm trying to get more in because I think I've 11 episodes now, but I've planned to get a lot more out. But there's tips that you just listen to it and it'll tell you how to do the QR codes, how to do different things. I'm not holding back on it because I'm going to make the world a better place by making sure people don't quit podcasting, or they start when they know they can, because there's some quality out there and we'll all benefit from that then.
And these are a mixture between audio and video. Are they all video?
Everyone is video. I do all video, and I even do the lives, like all the awakening one. I do a lot of live ones with a few other podcasters, and that's a great experience. I've done over 100, probably 200 at this stage, live ones, and it's a great, because there's a few different podcasters come together. So that's another thing people can do. If you have a certain topic, you can get a few people together and share guests or do a live with the guests. And it's just great because you're all tapping into each other's listeners. And if somebody, like say we were doing 6 of us and people said, oh, I like your style, then they'll start listening to your show as well. So you're collaborating and not only having fantastic guests that you mightn't have got yourself, but you're tapping into the different audiences.
So the live is same as what we're doing here, but we're going live, and so people can comment in real time as they're
Exactly. So one of the girls, she's actually from the Philippines but living in America. So she gets most of the guests. I've got maybe 10% of them, but she gets all because she's living in America. She gets to meet these, go to the events, and gets really famous people. But what she does is she does the intro, maybe asks a few questions, and then she's doing all the show notes and doing all the moving and everything. Because you can't, like, I was going to do that with some of my stuff, but you can't be doing that and paying attention. And I have to be totally focused what I'm doing. You need somebody else to do it. Like I see, say, if you listen to Patrick Bet-David, he's talking to people and he's on his computer, and it's like he's a brilliant interviewer, but I think you could miss something gold by just trying to find the stats of what he just mentioned earlier. He could have said something that's a million times more important and you'd miss it. So I think have somebody, if you can, and you don't, sometimes people will help the cause. It's not as if you have to pay someone, if you've budgets, someone might just support what you're doing and just say, look, and maybe give a shout out or give a link to what their business is. So collaborate with people who might do the back end for you.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it also reminds me of, we often take for granted what other people enjoy because we may not want to do it or may not enjoy it. But there are people out there that have that mindset of stats and details and putting all that stuff down and maybe communicating and reaching out and networking. That may not be, say, my favorite thing to do or someone else's. But we can actually find the right people to collaborate with. We can actually create something that benefits them as well. It's actually improving their life, and it's part of a cause because we're creating something, or we're aiming to create something that's actually, as you said, sharing and not sharing, benefiting the world because of the message. And so it doesn't matter if you are the speaker or if you're there on the sidelines, just as an important part of the journey. So that's a great reminder. I appreciate that as well. Yeah, that's really cool. I'd like to hear quickly about the Polish one. When you started, was this a journey of, I'm going to use this podcast so I can learn Polish, or was it to help other people to overcome certain blocks? I mean, there must have been a lot of challenges around just being on camera and doing this. There's a lot of vulnerability about learning as well. I mean, that must have been one of the best personal growth hacks.
And it's actually with my ex-wife that I did it. So we split up when my child was like 1, but we have a good relationship, which is a kind of important thing that I like to share as well. Because so many times when there's a relationship that breaks up, they use the child as a pawn, or they're hating each other. And it's like, you don't have to do that. But I was kind of, because she's got a school, I was trying to do it to get her clients as well, which she did. She got a lot of clients from it. But if I made a mistake, if I was saying, say, tomato wrong or something, I left it in. Because I thought, if I'm doing this, and I wasn't taking 10 takes, I was like, just like we're having this conversation, take 1, go. And it was like, if I'm making an error and you're learning the language, you go, oh, it's not just me struggling with this word. And I'd explain my thought process in everything. And it was just a good energy vibe. And it was never, I kept it 5 to 10 minutes. Because I think sometimes people think I need to learn a language for an hour. And if your energy drains after, like, you can listen to the thing 3 times if you want, and listen to a few episodes. But if you can walk away from that and you're not losing your energy and you're kind of remembering it, I think it works a lot better. And so I was benefiting it myself, because I was, obviously when you're talking about mechanics and stuff, because, if you're going to most schools or whatever, they don't tell you for everyday life. They're just making sure that you can write properly and say words properly. and I just hope you can structure it together. Whereas I was more using what exactly you will need when you're in Poland, and you can build it from there. And that was, and I mean, as I mentioned, it's got millions. It's strange. Like, it's seen, like, I have a screenshot, and this is actually a kind of a side bit to that. When you're doing the graphic, try to have a nice graphic, because when I did this first, I never thought it'd be that popular. I was like, so I just set up a tripod and took a picture of the two of us together, and it was like number one in a load of country. And I'm there next to BBC, next to Duolingo, next to a load of different things, and I'm there number one, but it was with a crappy graphic. And so, make sure that you kind of take the time and effort to do a nice graphic when you do it. But it's nice to actually see a reward, or even so many people commenting that, oh, I love this style, this is really helping me. And just, I mean, I've never met loads of them, but there were so many people that have wrote and just thanking me for, what they're doing. So that's a nice feeling as well, when you know that people are appreciating what you're creating.
It's because it's genuine, right? I think that's the key. We love watching genuine people, acts, whatever it might be. There's a difference between a performance and just being authentic. And when I watch someone on stage and they are just perfect from start to finish, I mean, that can be great. But there's something missing, I realized. When I see someone get up on stage and they're talking, and then sometimes they forget completely what they're talking about. And then they say to the audience, I forgot my point completely. There's something in us, deep, deep within us, that sees that imperfection in ourselves. And the stage has a very powerful way of having such an influence on us. So I think when we see that imperfection on someone that we're kind of looking up to in that way, it reminds us that we're all human. And, my heart opens up more when people kind of make mistakes. Not that I'm trying to promote people like go up there and make mistakes. I'm not encouraging it necessarily, but I do love it when that happens. And it makes me feel so great, and makes me love that person even more. In fact, I was listening to, Vanessa Van Edwards. She's really, she does a lot of science experiments around human behavior and things like that. And she did this certain experiment around sales, and someone walked into a room and they had coffee, and they tripped and spilt their coffee, and then they went and did their sales pitch. And so they were a little bit shaken up and did this sales pitch as they walked into this room. And I don't know how they did it, but then they did a test where they went in and did the perfect pitch to this room. And they did one where someone stumbled and kind of made a mistake, and then did the pitch, and more. There were way more sales with the person that made the mistake, because the people there that were around this person that was selling them this thing, they sensed this deeper connection with this person. And I just find that really, really beautiful and really fascinating.
And just on that, because the book, because I mentioned I read a lot of books, but the book that I had the most notes was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And like, I read it a few times, and I was saying, I must read it again. And so recently I got the Audible version, and there's so much wisdom and knowledge in that you can apply to everything. I'd encourage everybody, if you don't like reading, get the audio. But that is one, and it's all about connecting with people, but in a genuine way, and just how people were trying to get into a business, and then they just connected with them on some other level. After 4 years of knocking on their door, and then they just kind of started talking, getting interested in what they were discussing or what they were passionate about, and all of a sudden they started to like them. They were the exact same person. And you just kind of know that, and it can help you in the podcasting, it can help you in business, it can help you in the household, and that's one that I would highly recommend people to.
Yeah. Why do you think? Because from what I see, I don't know the exact stats, but I'm pretty sure that podcasting is one of the most popular mediums on the planet, if not the most, apart from maybe just music itself. Why do you think that podcasting is so popular these days?
I think the corruption of the media is the main thing. because people realized that they were regurgitating lies. And then when you see somebody doing a recording of something that was recorded in one channel replicated in 50 channels, and then they copy it over to the UK as well, and Ireland, and it's like, why are we listening to this? And the other thing is, and it's also on radio, like if you're listening on the radio, why is it that every hour we have to listen to doom and gloom for 5 minutes? I just want to listen to nice music. The first thing I do the minute I hear the news coming on is I'm reaching to turn it off or put on my CD or something like that. It's like, why is that acceptable? And the same with the news and on the TV channels. It's like, it used to be like you get the 6 o'clock news, maybe the 1 o'clock news, and that was like everybody's listening. But it was never anything that was uplifting. And now you've got news channels that are just 24/7. But because of podcasters and a lot of content creators, we realize the lies that are going on, and just people are connecting internationally a lot more. So they're showing one thing, and then we see the truth here. So people have gone, I'm not watching this no more. And then they hear a podcast, and podcast has passed up the media. Like, because one, people, they can listen their own time. So if a show's on at a certain, I know you get some devices that you can record what was on the TV, but with a podcast, some days you just have more time, and you just, whether you're at the gym, you're earning, or going for a walk, or just in the mood for it, but you listen when you want. And most of the platforms actually tell you when you've listened to it, so you know what you've watched and what's the next one.
Yeah, that's a really important thing. There's this deeper desire for us to just break out of this bullshit that we've been listening to. I stopped listening to news. I had the same thing as you many years ago. It was probably 15 years ago or so, when I was like, but I enjoy listening to the radio sometimes, just because it's like, I'm not picking the music. I enjoy there's a diversity there. Some songs I will like sometimes. But then, as you said, every time the news would come on, I would just be like rushing to try and just turn that off, because I'm like, no, you're not coming into my life. So I just decided to turn it off completely in the end. And there's just this deep wisdom for truth for us. I think if you look at the ratings, podcasts, now way outdoing, even the biggest news channels.
Yeah, I think CNN, they've announced a load of layoffs. So, I mean, good riddance, because, so many things that they've done were negative and lies. And, like, there's no accountability for that. So I'm delighted that people are actually turning off the television and putting on something that's more meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you see as important for someone like myself starting a podcast, or from your experience?
Don't be overwhelmed. So you might think, okay, I need to do the marketing, I need to do the editing, I need to do this, I need to do this. Just take a breath and just, even if you're just getting things going, okay, get the graphic. Like, whether it takes you a day to do that or a week to do that, and just have like the checklist and just go, okay. And once, like, for example, when I got somebody to show me how to edit first, and I just copied that. In the end, you don't need it. There's so much AI software out there. It can do the sound quality for you 10 times better. There's also companies that do it. I don't believe you need to do that. That you have to pay somebody a fortune to do the editing, because I know of people that were paying good money for it, and I didn't think they were getting a good service for the money that they were paying. So you don't need to do that. I use Adobe. Cost me something like €12 or something like that a month, and it's fantastic. And, just, I suppose everything, just systemize it. Like, if something is taking too long, I was always doing that. For example, I have a form that I get people to fill out. And before, if I was, say, interviewing you, I'd be going onto your website and I'd be going, okay, what will I put for about my guest? Now I get them to give it to me. Just cut and paste. And when I'm putting out my show, because I've talked to some people and they do it at different times. I say, I don't have time to put it on. When I edit it at twice the speed. I listen to everything at twice the speed. I can even listen to an audio podcast up to 3.5 times the speed, and probably maybe more if it'll load it, but I can comprehend stuff at twice the speed, no problem. So, like, we mentioned about losing train of thought. Now I've just done it there. I just lost it. But main thing is, like, systemize it. Like, look at, how can I make this easier? Like, what's taking my time? Okay, how can I make this better? Like, for example, with me, I mean, I've got equal custody for my child. I have it blocked out. Nobody's booking a podcast that, the different days, like that's Monday or Wednesday. It's, but the Tuesday and the Thursday is the normal days that I'm doing the interviews. And, just things like that. And if you find something's taking time, okay, how can I, like, I mean, you can get a virtual assistant to do all your social media stuff. If that's not like, like say accounting or whatever, sometimes people go, I just hate that stuff. If there's something that really sucks the energy out of you and you love the creative side, you can pay someone a few bucks to be doing it. Or a friend might do it and, collaborate with you and track everything. Like, every single thing that you're doing. So actually, where I was going earlier, it came back. When I'm doing the podcast, I'm putting it out on Spotify, YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble at the exact same time. I get my title box going to be cut, paste, 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 paste. The show notes, cut, paste, 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 whatever. Post, 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 post. So everything goes out. Then I log it on my Excel sheet. And then I'm just tracking everything. And then I make sure I have to share it, because sometimes I think people spend a lot of time doing an interview and then they go on to the next one. You have to spend a lot of time doing the marketing, whether you get somebody to do it or you do it yourself. Make sure you're sharing it and share your wins. If you see yourself number 200 in the charts, share it. If you get a beautiful review, share it. Keep sharing it and make it easy for people to see the link. So shorts definitely help. You can put the shorts on Facebook, on all the different places. But what I do is I either have the link in the short, or I'm commenting or putting it in the post where they can find the show, because you think people will go, oh, I'm going to check his show because this was such a great short. People are either lazy or they just won't have the time, or they'll think they'll find it. Make it easy for them. Make it simple. They find the show, and slowly but surely, and just, be in it for the long haul. And if you change one person's life, you'll see comments and it'll just go, ooh, this is great. Or you meet people. Like, there was times I'd be at an event, loads of people come up to you and they go, I love your show. They've never thumbs up or comment or whatever, but that doesn't matter. So there's people listening. And it's like, even just one person saying, I loved when blah, blah, blah. Or people write to you and they just say, you just saved me. I just heard it. And they say, look, I'm single. I have 3 kids, and you just, because I share a lot on sovereignty and things like that. And I know that I'm making a difference. And when you see somebody just writing to you like that, it's like, oh, this is good. I know. And you just so be in it for the long haul and just be consistent and love it. Don't do it because you think, I want to be a millionaire, I want to make a fortune. The money will come. Do it from the passion. Do something you love. If you love it and you can change your life just by talking to people, even if you're not making money for it, you'll still do it. And just, yeah. So I wish you super success with your show.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time greatly, and your wisdom and your advice. It's so many times I've just had these aha moments and just realizations of, oh, great. Yeah, these are some of the action steps that I can add and add to my strategy and structure as I go. So it's been such a pleasure. Hope we can do this again and have another conversation, maybe on different topics.
Yeah, there's plenty that I can. I mean, I've had 20 businesses. I've lost
at least 6 more conversations.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple more questions. Well, actually 3 to be exact. What, going forward in life, would you next like to experience?
I mean, for me, it's always been present. So no matter what I'm doing, it's never, oh, I want to have this big house out, because I lost everything at one stage. So the beauty of that is I learned to be present and enjoy what you are. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm look at every day. I plan every day that I could die tomorrow or I could live to over 100. And I want to make sure that, okay, did I enjoy myself today? And if I didn't, why? And what I can do to make it nice. And just celebrate the small little things, because trust me, I've had a lot of properties at one stage and everything, and all you want is more and more. That's not where love is. That's not where the passion is. So just be present, be totally present, be mindful. Watch the birds, watch the bee when it lands on the flower and see the flower bend, and just pay attention to everything, and there's so much beauty there. Because if you're looking at the negative in the world, you'll find so much negativity. But if you start looking at the beautiful and start finding out who's doing fantastic things in the world, you'll start attracting more of it, and then you can start sharing that, and that then gives faith to humanity, where a lot of people think, we're doomed, and you realize, no, we're not. The light always shines.
I love that. And how would you like to grow in yourself?
I'm a constant learner. Like, as I mentioned, I read a load of books, listen to a load of podcasts, surround myself with people I really like. And I'm one thing that I think the older me would, you just tolerate people, or you just go, no, I cut the ties fast. If I see someone is sucking the energy, or just you see a side, there's sometimes, if somebody is in a family or something like that, you can't really, I know some people, they're stuck in a situation like that, but limit it. And just make sure you're with the people that when you walk away, you feel good, instead of the people you walk away and you just want to lie down and go to sleep. So that's something that I have never regretted, cutting people out of my life. I've always said, should have done this earlier.
I'd love to know how, if you had everything you ever wanted in the world, no issues whatsoever, how would you see yourself contributing from that place?
I think I look at what was done previously with everything legal, and that is my mission. And my mission is, how can I, and like, I've got a lot of books in the pipeline and everything. It's making everything work without control, because we were born free, and then somebody decides they think they own us. And I've learned that. I've had over 100 court cases. I've learned the power of freedom, and the power of standing in your own self and not being afraid of a judge, police officers, detectives, anything like that. And you see them buckling because they're not coming from the heart, and realize your power. So the more that I do, the more that I achieve. It's just expanding that, getting more awareness, and I'm seeing more and more are actually learning that. So, for example, if you're stopped and you jaywalking, I know they do that, but it's like, who's the injured party? And they get you to sign everything. Yeah, you don't sign it, because you're basically just agreeing, and you just learn your power. So my mission in life is just make things better, educate people without pushing my agenda, just saying, this is my belief system, because what happens is, you believe this, I believe that, and we just batter each other, and then we walk away hating each other. That's not how you win anything. And it's like, what I've learned is, I was thinking this way because that was my belief system, but I've learned because of boom, 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 and now I think that way. And people are way more open to that. And I never attack people, or if people question it, I engage in the conversation. And once they're not abusive, I'm never abusive, then that's how we can actually make the change and make the world better.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything, for your time and those beautiful answers. Now, I want people to know where they can find you. Many people have probably already found you. What's meaningful for you to share for the audience?
Yeah, they can find me on my name, roycoughlan.com, and their virtual assistants are go to VA.World. But everything, my 6 podcasts, all I'm doing, so if I have new businesses, everything is there, all my social media. Very happy to connect with people, so just connect with me. And if you have questions or you want to recommend somebody to go on the show, happy to engage in the conversation.